Paul Sylvia? Well, he had quite the summer.
We started off going through the Cascades, then we went down to Yellowstone. It was terrific to see America.
The Brockton-based attorney left the office for 9 weeks last summer to ride across the country with Cycle America. His adventure began just north of Seattle.
Take me through that first day. Was it everything you were expecting it to be? Was it kind of like, what did I get myself into?
Oh yeah, it was definitely nerve-wracking. Nobody knew each other, and I didn't know how good of riders these were, whether I'd be able to keep up with them.
7 days later,
everybody knew each other, you know. After that first week, which was a tough one, people pretty much knew everybody else, and it was fantastic.
What were some of your high points during that journey?
The state parks and national parks that we went through.
As the mountains gave way to flatter terrain, a new challenge presented itself.
When we got out of the mountains in South Dakota and got into the farmland, there were hot days out there where you said, okay, I'm in for a long ride today.
Traveling mostly back roads, the bikers climbed elevations over 8,000 feet and typically rode through towns under 3,000 in population.
We had such great receptions at all the towns we stayed in, and they were always very cordial, very friendly.
Paul rode 4,450 miles in total, taking advantage of every opportunity.
It varied from person to person, because some days they would have optional detours. If there were some spectacular falls 2 or 3 miles off the main route. You know, for me, I figured since I'm out here and this is a biking trip, I always tried to do the extra.
Along the way, Paul chronicled his journey through photos and text messages to his wife, Carrie, but it was nothing compared to having her join him for 3 weeks of the trip.
She joined us in South Dakota, and she rode for 3 weeks to Niagara Falls.
How special was that for the two of you to share that together?
That was terrific. We didn't have much downtime each day because we were out riding so much or putting up our tent or whatever. So it was great that she actually showed up and could see what I was going through.
A typical day went something like this: an early breakfast before hitting the road, 6 to 8 hours of biking, and then it was time to set up camp in tents or gymnasiums across the country.
Everybody brought a tent. That was mandatory. If it was going to be good weather and I had plenty of time to set the tent up, I'd sleep outside.
I bet you were really happy to see your bed once you got home.
Absolutely. They did offer us motel options on the weekends, and I took advantage of every opportunity we had to do that.
During the weekdays, a hot meal and warm reception often greeted them.
When we'd pull into a high school, the people there, either the cafeteria workers or the local Lions Club or a group that was raising money to redo the locker rooms, would put the meal on, and they would take the proceeds and use it for their cause.
After dinner, the group leaders would provide the bikers with maps for the following day, highlighting quick turns, pavement problems, even traffic areas.
Just so that you'd brace yourself for those areas.
Lucky for Paul, he only had to deal with 3 flat tires.
So before the trip, I'd never changed a flat, but a good friend of mine from West Bridgewater gave my wife and I a lesson one night, and so I was very pleased to do my first change.
He also had no injuries up until the final days of the trip. 20 miles from Gloucester, Paul ended up crashing while trying to put his water bottle on his bike. Still, he powered through towards the finish line, dipping his bike into the Atlantic Ocean.
We had 32 that went coast to coast, and we started with 32 and finished with 32. And the tour leader said that's the first time that's happened since 2008.
However, Paul had a personal goal that went beyond that Gloucester finish. He gave himself 1 day of rest, then it was back on his bike, headed towards Falmouth.
My wife had contacted some people down there in Woods Hole from the Falmouth Biking Club, and so the Sea to Shining Sea Bikeway is about 10 miles long, and it ends in Woods Hole. So a group of them gathered at the northern end of it and rode in the last 10 miles with me.
What's the first thing you did when you got home?
I had some cake, Yeah. A friend of ours had gotten a beautiful cake from White's Bakery in Brockton, and it had a map of the United States showing the route that we took.
What do you do to top this?
It's just kind of settling back into the real world again. So I haven't looked ahead to see what's next, but I'm sure something will pop up.